What's up, fellow grounded travelers? It's Liz from Means to Travel, and today we are continuing the series on this channel where I talk to lots of friends of mine from around the country and around the globe who have been in cities or locations affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. So today I'm talking to my very good friend Rachel, who is based in Seattle, Washington, in the United States, which was the first city to really have a big outbreak here in the US. She also has recently been to New York City, which has a large outbreak as well, and has some good insights about both that we can talk through. So without further ado, hi Rachel, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm great, how are you? It's so exciting to have you on this channel.
I'm so excited to be on.
Good. Well, let's just dive right in. Why don't you let people know where you are right now?
Yeah. So, truth be told, I'm actually in my office. And the reason I am, I promise I'm abiding by quarantine rules, but I'm actually the only person in my office. My husband has completely taken over our work from home space. So the fact that no one's here made it safe for me to come in. So
And you walk to work too, correct?
I actually don't. My husband Jared does,
Oh,
but
that's right. So sorry.
yeah, yeah. And I probably shouldn't even have to tell you, like my husband Jared. Um,
Well, I know Jared.
um, but yeah, he is able to walk to work, although he's not. He's staying at home. But I actually drive to work. My office is located in North Seattle, so just a little quick trip up north. But as you can tell, it's very quiet here. I am
Yes.
the only one here. A safe space.
And your boss has okayed this as well, and you probably wipe everything down when you're coming and going, I assume.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, my boss, right as things were starting to heat up a little bit in Seattle, he decided to head to Florida to be with a loved one. So, but while he's been away, yes, I've just been making sure that I'm wiping down anything that would be touched by another individual other than myself, which at this point really is no one, but I'm still taking that precaution, and washing my hands obsessively.
Yeah.
They're quite red and raw at this point, but so be it. And yeah, and I'm literally just going from my apartment to the office and then back, and
Yeah.
really interacting with anyone at this point.
And how long have you been doing this? And what's kind of the rules right now in Seattle?
Yeah, so I have been doing this since I would say about the beginning of March. That said, I did have to take an emergency trip back to New York. So I did miss a lot of the initial activity here in Seattle. But I've been back now for, I guess, about like a little over a week. And it's really interesting to see kind of how things started in Seattle and kind of where we're at now. And I think because coronavirus broke here first, there was a lot that was kind of unknown. When I first left, the state was just taking certain precautions where they were really limiting big gatherings of people. Schools, they decided to close schools in the city of Seattle.
What was the date that you left?
I left, I'm trying to think, I believe it was March 3rd.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, today that we're recording it, it is March 31st.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, it was really interesting, things, when I was just leaving, that's when unfortunately there was that big outbreak in Kirkland, which is on the east side, at a nursing home there. So, they started to take certain precautions here, but it has really ramped up since, I had left and now being back. Schools are still closed. They're going to be closed until about April 24th, but I'm expecting, and everyone is really expecting that to be, extended. And all non-essential businesses are obviously closed. there actually was a really interesting, I was listening to the news this morning, and a lot of people have been calling the governor's office complaining about people that are violating the stay-at-home proclamation. So they actually now have a link on the governor's website where you can actually notify the state of anybody that's violating.
Wow. So people are telling on other people.
They are. It's kind of crazy. When I first left, I feel like people were people were concerned, but I think that they were cautiously optimistic, whereas now I think people really understand the implications. And
Yeah.
yeah, there definitely, there have been big changes here that I've noticed since I've gotten back, and people are really using this time to hunker down as much as they can. And the city, for the most part, feels like a bit of a ghost town, which is kind of
I
strange.
bet. I mean, really, Seattle was such an epicenter for many weeks here in the US. So I know that you were gone for part of the month of March, but before you left for New York at the beginning of March, it was kind of when the coronavirus was really starting to hit the city. What would you say the difference in like moods and attitudes for the citizens were from now versus or from then compared to what it is now at the end of March?
Yeah. So it's definitely very different. I think that, in our neighborhood in Capitol Hill, which is like a young, vibrant neighborhood, a lot of people from colleges and universities live there. It's like a highly trafficked part of the city because there's a ton of nightlife and restaurants.
Yeah.
It really didn't seem like anything was really that different. I think that people were concerned, but no one was really changing their day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was a little horrified. So one of our local community theaters that we've gone to that plays a lot of cult classic films, they were almost kind of boasting about the fact that they were still open and that people were, risking eating from the communal nut bowls, which I was just absolutely horrified. And I thought to myself, no, do not do this.
Yeah.
But since then, and now coming back to the city, I've noticed a complete shift. I see a lot of people, when I do actually see people outside, it's really truly just for essential activities. So walking their dogs, maybe going for a stroll with their children. People are definitely keeping you 6 feet from them, as you should, with social distancing. We were at the supermarket over the weekend, and I was really surprised / thrilled to see that the market was handing out compostable gloves.
Oh, wow.
So that you can,
Compostable even.
right? I was amazed and just so proud.
Bravo.
Yeah, so that people, they didn't have to touch their carts. They could actually pick up their produce without, not that I think that is a big concern, but you could just be safe with every made in the store. So, yeah, I definitely have noticed a shift. And also, I have to say, and this might sound a bit terrible, but because our area is very young, I think once classes kind of ended with a lot of the colleges and universities in our area, that's when I also noticed a really big change, because I think that a lot of youngsters are not necessarily as concerned as other demographics in the city. And I noticed, there's a track at Seattle U that was just popping. And since then, literally within a couple of days of me being home, it's been shut down. I saw all the students were packing up, classes are canceled or happening remotely at this point. So that, I think, also really contributed to what I've seen in our particular area by way of just taking more precaution. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you have certain like younger demographics right around you, I'm sure you're going to see an evolution. What
Yes.
would you say shopping like at supermarkets or other essential stores is like now,
Yeah,
other
it's
than the compostable gloves?
yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like, kind of unfortunate for me, I've followed this virus to both epicenters, so Seattle and then
Yeah, well, we
New
should
York.
probably speak to that because we've alluded to it a few times already.
Yeah,
So the reason why, and I'll let you explain a little further, but the reason why Rachel went was actually, I would consider, and most people would, essential, why
yes.
she went to New York.
Yeah, so unfortunately, my father had to have emergency open heart surgery. He's doing great. He's doing fine. He's now resting comfortably at home, which we're all very thankful. Things turned out very well. But yeah, it's interesting. To answer your supermarket question, it's interesting to see kind of what the situation is in Seattle versus what I was seeing when I was home in New York at the supermarket. I feel like people were panic buying a lot more in New York than they are here. When I had gone, my dad is not able to go out for obvious reasons. He's got a compromised immune system at this point. So when he first got home from the hospital, I went out and bought groceries for my family, and it was really challenging to find any meat items.
Right.
And, the stuff that was left, a lot of it was red meat, which for someone with a heart condition, they can't eat. So,
Right.
and a lot of canned goods it was really hard to locate. And I had to go to 3 different grocery stores in our neighborhood back home to just get everything that was needed.
Wow.
And then coming to Seattle, there definitely are items that are missing at the stores, like still a lot of the canned goods. But I felt like we had a lot more access to produce and meat and some of the non-perishable items than in New
And
York.
Seattle, I don't know if this would be a benefit, but you guys are kind of the home to Costco and Amazon, some
Yeah.
of the big grocery suppliers in the nation. Do you
Yes.
feel like the logistics that have been set up with, being the headquarters to supply food to the city has been pretty good compared to what you've heard other
Yeah,
places?
definitely. I think, with Amazon, there are, you have we have now an Amazon Go store in our neighborhood,
Oh,
which is,
cool.
yeah, which is super cool. So I mean, the amount of goods there is a little bit limited, but you literally go in, you walk through, you grab what you need and leave.
Right.
So it's kind of, in a weird way, that the timing was ideal for something like that to open in the neighborhood because you don't have to be interacting with people.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, you have obviously Whole Foods delivery, Amazon Fresh, like a lot of these delivery services that have made life a lot easier for people here. Um, and I think also too, because Seattle is not as densely populated as a city like New York, it's a lot easier logistically to get around, for delivery services and things like that. Also, Washington State has a huge, huge agricultural industry, and it's really close to the city. So I think that a lot of the farmers are, the weather's starting to improve here. So I think the growing season is now officially kicked off, and we have a lot of access to fresh produce, which has been a really good thing.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys are still stocked when it comes to food. Are there any paper good issues like a lot of other places are experiencing?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Tell me more.
I know. We are rationing our toilet paper and paper towel in our apartment. We did actually find a source in our neighborhood for toilet paper. We just kind of checked just a local store. They basically just sell alcohol and water and things like
Hmm.
that. we just checked in and they had some, so we grabbed some.
All
Uh,
the essentials, alcohol, water, and toilet paper.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, so that was a good thing, because I know definitely, there are just some carrier delays too. Like, even if you were to buy something on Amazon, let's say, sometimes things are not shipping until much later than the projected window. So that has been great. And also too, I mean, obviously people should be safe, but if and where possible, just to be able to support a lot of your local businesses, that's something that Jared and I have really tried to do through all of this, obviously in a safe way, but
Right.
instead of going to the Amazons of the world, we've been trying to source as much of food and essential items through just local vendors as much as possible. So.
And so you've been doing pickup or delivery meals and stuff like that?
So what we've been actually doing, we've actually been venturing to the grocery store and just buying large volumes of everything, just so that it would essentially last us the week.
Yeah.
Just also just trying to get creative with leftovers and trying to figure out like how we can make that into a whole new meal. We have been using food delivery services. People like Caviar. We don't have Seamless Web here.
Mm-hmm. Which
Or
is like Grubhub and a lot of other places. Basically, you can order food from
exactly.
local restaurants and have it delivered.
Exactly. So we have been using Caviar. We've been, if it's close by, opting to pick up, and obviously bringing hand sanitizer with us,
Yep.
and trying to just keep ourselves, at a distance
Yep.
from the person that's handing us the food. Or where we can't actually walk to the restaurant, we have been getting delivery services, and they just drop it outside of our apartment.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
Have you guys tried any new recipes since, or made up your own new recipes in the kitchen with all of this food that you've been buying?
Yeah, we definitely have. Jared made this really delicious Mediterranean dish the other day,
Ooh.
that used olives, which obviously keep very well, some feta cheese. He bought just a ton of chicken. We're just swimming in chicken at the moment. So yeah,
Easy to freeze chicken and
exactly,
use it for.
exactly. And we had purchased an Instant Pot not too long ago, so we're finding that is really useful just to make quick and easy meals.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, we've just been trying to keep ourselves busy. Unfortunately, I mean, Seattle's known for its natural beauty, and there are some really beautiful parks around in the area, and obviously there are the mountains and just really great areas outside of the city to visit, but unfortunately they closed the state parks here, so because people were using the time to hike and they were not abiding by the 6-foot rule.
Yeah,
So
when everybody starts going to the state parks all at once just to get fresh air, then there's less social distancing
yeah,
available. We had
exactly.
actually a similar thing happen here in Chicago with a lot of the urban trails and the beaches. They all closed recently.
Yeah, so it's hard, because I think that people are opting outside, but
Yeah, and it's springtime finally. People want to be outside.
exactly. But we've been trying to keep ourselves busy. I think we've used this time to, finish stuff up in our apartment that we've been putting off, and just getting our things a little bit more organized. And I'm going to try and tackle some DIY projects that I've been interested in. So we're trying to just fill up the time as much as we can.
That's good. Is there anything that you have like set goals during quarantine to do, or found something fun to entertain yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, I think Jared would agree with me. We're a little bit messy. So I think that this has been a great time just to get our apartment clean and really organized.
So you
And
guys just moved in, at the end of last year, basically.
yeah, but believe it or not, we still have containers and things that we have back. So
I think that's the peril of everybody who has recently moved.
yeah, yeah. And we're like, it'll be a year in this new apartment Labor Day weekend, which is obviously a ways away, but I think we're finally going to use that this time now to just get all of that taken care of. And I don't know, I mean, Jared is really, really big on exercise, and, with like the track closing in our area and things like that, he has now kind of created this at-home gym. So that is something that we're trying to get into and used to. And
good for Jared.
Yeah, I know, he's so disciplined, that one. But yeah, I think like it's a great time just to, number one, just kind of, I don't know, get back to basics a little bit, like use this time to really unwind, reconnect with loved ones. We've really been loving, since we can't physically see people, just being able to do FaceTime dates and things like that. Yeah. We loved our FaceTime date with you and Eric the other night.
That one was not recorded.
No, that was not recorded. But yeah, it's just a great time, I think, just to kind of take a beat, really get to maybe just do some passion projects, like just do some stuff that you've been wanting to do and you just haven't had the space for.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just, I don't know, maybe also plan for the future.
Totally.
We were going to take a trip to Japan, which obviously has been put on the back burner. Yeah. But I mean, I think we'll at least maybe do some of the research now to see if it's something we can maybe do in the fall. So
I love hearing that. And actually, I mean, how far along were you guys into planning your trip? Had you booked anything?
No, we were just about to. So
okay. So you didn't have to go through any cancellation.
No, which I feel really, I'm glad. I know the airlines are being really, really understanding, but yeah, I'm glad we didn't end up booking, but we were starting just to source from friends some ideas and suggestions. And actually my cousin lived in Japan for, I think, about like 5 years. So he was giving us some really cool recommendations from, an insider's perspective. So I think once we actually can go, we have a lot of information at our disposal at this point, and can also source more. So we're just going to probably use the time now just to kind of figure out, once we get back to some normalcy and that, it's safe to travel again, what we can come up with, and maybe even now that we've had the time to plan, just come up with a even more, blown out trip than what we would have had previously.
For sure. And you probably have a lot of options when it comes to hotels, and the travel industry obviously has been hurting a lot lately, and they're going to be welcoming people once it's safe to travel with open arms. Definitely. So I think the world is going to be your oyster once you've made it through all of this fogginess.
Yeah, definitely. I know, maybe we can team up and do like a little couples trip.
Ooh, I mean, I've never been to Japan, so that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So when you did go on an airplane though this month, what was that flying experience like?
Yeah, that was an interesting flying experience, I'm not gonna lie. So I flew out of JFK, and
Jared, that was in the middle of the month, right?
Yes. So that was in the middle of the month. So Jared and I used to live in New York, first in Manhattan and then in Brooklyn, and we flew out of JFK all the time. So it was really crazy to see it so empty.
Totally.
It was wild. There literally was one line for security. I was one of maybe 6 people that were going through security. And yeah, it was interesting to me. I felt like especially because when I was leaving New York, it was really starting to heat up, just in terms of number of cases and things like that. And Governor Cuomo was addressing everyone on a daily basis with all these updates. And I was really
Which he
surprised,
still is.
which he still is, and he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's
Um,
staying steady for everyone.
yes, I was so impressed. And yeah, I mean, one thing I was surprised about is for, an international airport, and, people were still flying. It may not have been the usual number, but a few people were still flying, but there was no screening.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you know, on my flight, unfortunately, there was a passenger that they were worried about. So I would say about halfway through our flight, this individual had come down with chills, was sweating, and had a cough. And, the flight attendants had to then figure out what to do next. Everyone ended up wearing masks. They were already wearing gloves, so that was already taken care of. But they had to escort this passenger off the plane immediately when we landed. And
That's got to feel so surreal for you.
yeah, absolutely. Because, I think
Too close for comfort.
exactly. And my parents kept on asking me when I got back to Seattle if I had called the airline just to check in and see if that passenger did in fact have coronavirus. And I did not. I just kind of assumed he probably did. And that if there was a real issue, probably I would have gotten a phone call from the airline. But I thought to myself, had, there been proper screening at JFK, this individual probably would have been flagged even before he could get on the flight, and wouldn't have put not only just the passengers, but the flight crew at risk as well. Because I was asking the flight attendant if they were going to get grounded, and she said she wasn't sure, that they would have to find out. But it just was not a good situation, obviously. And
Right.
yeah, but it was one of those things. I had to come back to Seattle. Had I tried to stay for as long as I could in New York, but I had a husband to get home to, and our cat, and my job.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I would say for anybody that needs to fly at this point, just really take every precaution possible. And if you don't feel well, stay home. It's just really not worth risking, anything.
Especially risking getting everybody else on the plane sick too.
It's all circulated air. It's just a bad situation. And especially if you're taking a long flight. I mean, a cross-country trip.
Yeah, how long is the flight from New York to Seattle again?
It's about I think they project it to be like 5 hours and 30 minutes or so. And usually they can make it in 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long flight. So
Yeah.
it's a long flight to be on if a passenger is, actively sick and possibly transmitting the virus. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it was no good. But yeah, I mean, that was my biggest concern, obviously. And again, just thinking that it probably could have been a non-issue had there been screening at the
Yeah.
airport.
I don't think there's screening still. Was the flight pretty empty at that point?
Yeah, I would say there's probably maybe about 24 passengers on this flight.
So you at least were able to social distance a lot more than on a typical
Yeah,
journey.
I had my own row. I had a row to myself, which was very nice, especially for a cross-country trip.
Yeah.
And I did fly with a mask. I know they're kind of contentious. We had Jared, a couple of months ago, had bought masks for a project that he was doing at home,
Mm-hmm.
that where he needed, protection from dust. So it just so happened, they're the N95 masks. So I actually was able to fly with that. And it was more for my peace of mind more than anything. And
Right. And you were going to be, I mean, we mentioned earlier her dad had been in the hospital, so you were going to be in hospitals too.
that was the other thing. Like, I knew that even if it was something where I wouldn't necessarily be protected from coronavirus using it, I knew that I would at least be protected from things like the flu or the common cold, because he was not in a position where he could really risk getting sick. So yeah. And it was also really interesting to see how the hospitals were dealing with this as well. I was really surprised to see, my father was in the cardiac intensive care unit, and then once he was able, was released onto just the regular cardiac floor. And there was only one day out of 2 weeks where they had asked people coming into the hospital if they had, had any fever recently or a cough, which, when you think about the number of people coming in and out of a hospital, there were children, there were people that were multiple people visiting one patient at a time. There was no screening really, with the exception again of that one day. That to me also seemed very problematic.
Right.
Because you're dealing with a lot of people that have suppressed immune systems. So, I definitely think that it's every day, it's kind of a learning experience for everyone, and no one really knew what to expect, and we're kind of learning as we go. But I definitely think there were just certain things that I observed where I felt like there was some room for improvement.
Yeah, just safety precautions that perhaps will be implemented if this happens again.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, how are you feeling? You've now been home for a little bit, home in
Yeah.
Seattle, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good. I feel like everyone, I just think it's such a weird time. It's just kind of strange to, especially if you're living in a city where you're used to seeing a lot of people out and about, just to walk around our city here and just not really see many people. A lot of the businesses have boarded up their places of business just to make sure that everything's protected while they're away and things are closed. It's definitely a strange time, but I think the community here is really, really strong. People here feel very passionate about small and independently owned businesses, and are trying to support them as best they can.
Oh, that's great.
Which is good. So, I know it's definitely going to be challenging these next couple of weeks, but I'm feeling hopeful. I hope, and I feel like the community is really going to come together through all of this and just do their best to, make sure people are, like, all these local businesses are supported, and just doing what they can to keep them in business.
Are there any kind of local heartwarming stories that you've heard about around Seattle?
Yeah, so there were two that came up recently. So the other night, I think it was Friday night, Jared and I were just sitting watching TV, and it was about 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden we heard all of this cheering. People just like ringing bells and shouting, and we were like, what is this? And we went online, and it was something that the community had organized, and I guess it had been posted on social media. But at 8 o'clock every night, people are supposed to go to their porches or their balconies or, their windows and cheer for all of the health professionals that are taking care of everybody during this epidemic, which that really warmed my heart. And we actually, so Capitol Hill is adjacent to First Hill, which is an area where there are there's a number of hospitals and doctors' offices, and a lot of healthcare staff live there.
Okay, so hopefully they all heard it.
I think they did, which was it was so touching. And then the other story I was reading about the other day was in an area called Phinney Ridge, which is in North Seattle. The community there just got together, and every Sunday for, I guess, the last 3 weeks, they've been putting on like community concerts where they'll play music, obviously 6 feet apart.
Right.
But, they have, concerts, and also I think there have been poem readings and things like that. And just, I think, trying to make people feel connected during a time where it's very easy to feel very disconnected. So that was really
Is it easy, do you know, for them to keep people 6 feet apart with that type of event?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Seattle and the suburbs of Seattle is that even though like they're technically in the city, and the houses are relatively close together, it's very easy to be 6 feet apart. So if you're on your property line and your neighbor's on theirs, it's
Hmm.
very easy to be that far away. So that was very touching to read. So I think that people are trying to find ways to just connect and reconnect, and that's always just a nice thing to hear, because I think a lot of people right now are just feeling very disconnected.
Of course.
So yeah, so that
And
was
that's really a major reason why I've started this interview series on my channel. I wanted to make sure that we as a global community feel like we are connected with people in different cities that we hear about in the news every day. And it's a human experience that we're all going through. It's not like, oh, Seattle's doing this. It's that the people in Seattle are going through this.
yes.
And so I'm glad that you've been able to really open everybody's eyes to what day-to-day life looks like in Seattle today and has looked like over the past few weeks.
Yeah, of course. And I'm
Is
really
there
glad.
any social media or website that you want to point people to if they want to know more about what's happening in Seattle?
Yeah, I think um, I found that the access.wa.gov website for the state is really, really useful. I know that a lot of people have a lot of
We'll put
questions.
a little thing here down below, so you guys have can know the address.
Perfect. Yeah, like it's a great resource. I think a lot of people have questions about like, am I an essential business? Or how
Hmm.
long is this stay-at-home proclamation in effect for? And when is it being reevaluated? And I found that the website has a lot of information on it that's very easy to find. It's not hidden anywhere. So I would totally encourage people to check there. And yeah, just, continue to we're all in this together. So I know it's obviously a challenging time, but just to, I don't know, take comfort in the fact that we're all in this together.
We
And
are.
the sooner, or I guess just making sure that we're abiding by all of these stay-at-home orders, the sooner we enforce them and are really aggressive with them, the sooner this can get lifted. So
Yeah. Have you heard? I feel like I was hearing that the stay-at-home orders seem to be working a little bit in Seattle. They can tell a difference.
yeah, like I think
And you
that
guys had them even longer than most places.
yeah, we started a lot earlier than everybody else did, because unfortunately we were the first. But yeah, I think what they've been seeing is that while the numbers I think are still going up, they've slowed significantly.
Yeah, I've
So
heard that too.
yeah, which is great news. So I think that yeah, I know I'm so happy to hear, because it's scary, but I think from what I've heard, even though we've made good progress, state and local government is not looking to lift anything anytime soon, because they want to make sure that we stay on this good path.
Yeah,
And hopefully in the next month or so, things will be a bit different. So
fingers crossed.
I know, seriously, I know.
Yeah. Well, it was a treat to have you on today. Thank you so much for doing this interview so we could learn a lot about, again, the day-to-day life that's happening in Seattle right now.
Of course.
Um,
Thank you for having me. It's been
of
my pleasure.
course. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up down below. And also, if you want to see more videos to come on this channel, feel free to press that red subscribe button below too. I am going to be releasing throughout this next few weeks different interviews from people in different places around the globe talking about what their COVID-19 experience looks like. And also for the next few weeks, I'm doing a live stream with my husband, Mr. Means to Travel, aka Derek, every Thursday night and Sunday morning. So feel free to tune in then too. All right. And thanks everybody for watching. Cheers. Bye. Hey travelers, don't forget to subscribe and let's hang out more. Here are some links to other helpful travel videos on my channel, and press that notification bell so you don't miss any new and awesome travel videos to come.